Welcome back for episode 6. Today is Color in Armed Forces, presented by Steam Engine Academy. First, we'll meet with Stephanos to talk about the history of Tuskegee Airmen. Then, we'll speak with Brandy Jones-Thomas about her experience in the Air Force. Stay tuned.
With Europe facing a Second World War, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt announced that the country would be expanding its training opportunities for pilots. With this, several lobbyists and groups, including the NAACP, lobbied for African Americans to participate as pilots. This would eventually lead to the first group of all-black unit of pilots known as the Tuskegee Airmen. In July 19th, 1941, the Army Air Corps would commission its first all-black combat unit composing of the 99th Pursuit Squadron, the 332nd Expeditionary Group, and the 477th Bombardment Group. The airmen would go on to assist the Allies in victory in World War II with Benjamin O. Davis as their commander. The unit flew over 15,000 sorties and over 150 escort missions while it was serving in Italy and in the Mediterranean during World War II. During the war, these units would also go on to achieve 96 Flying Crosses, 14 Bronze Stars, and 8 Purple Hearts. Many of its pilots post-war went on to become distinguished officers in the armed forces. For example, George S. Roberts became the first black commander of an integrated unit, the 331st Air Division, and Dave Chappie James Jr. became the nation's first 4-star general.
Hello and welcome back to 28 Days of Color. Today's topic is color in the armed forces, and we are here with Brandy Jones-Thomas. How are you?
I am good. I am excited that these young scholars can hear what I have to say today.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate getting your input. We want to represent as many people in the Black community as we can. So I'll get started with your first question. So what branch of the service were you in, and what inspired you to enlist?
All right, so I went into the Air Force. I went in at 18. So I graduated high school and went straight to the Air Force. What inspired me to go in is actually my dad was in the Army, so he served in war. And then also my uncle served in war. And so they were proponents of the military, but my mother and my aunt were not. And so they did not want me to join the Air Force. And so I joined the Air Force because my uncle told me that, did I ever see Rolls-Royce commercials on the TV? And I said, no, I never see them. He said, you never would. So you didn't see Air Force commercials. So he was pointing out that was a top-notch branch to join because they didn't have to promote it. And so I said, okay. So I tested, got in, and that's how I started.
My dad was Air Force too, so that hits close to home.
For the service, yeah.
Right, that's right. I loved hearing that. So how long were you active duty, and what rank did you achieve?
Yeah, so I did 6 years in, and so I was fortunate that when I went in, there was enlistment bonus back then, so you would get a bonus to join. And so I did 6 years. I achieved the rank of sergeant. So I left as Sergeant Orton, my formerly married name. So I left as a staff sergeant, so E5.
Very nice, very nice. And so while you were in the service, what is something that you were particularly proud of?
The hustle, right? So I learned all the loopholes. So now that people see me and they ask, well, how did you do 6 years in the military and you still have a master's degree and you've had 15 years in therapy and you're only 40? I learned that while I was in the military, they would pay for my bachelor's degree without me using my GI Bill. So I could use that when I got out. And so while I was in, I finished a 2-year degree for free by CLEP test. And then after those 2 years, I did that in less than 6 months. I finished a 2-year degree in 6 months. And then I did my 4-year degree in less than 2 years because I had done the CLEP test. And so I walked away from the military 6 years in with a 4-year degree.
Wow. So I heard you say CLEP test. Now, is that a way of you testing out past all the courses that you would usually
yeah, it's like correspondence classes, right? And so you get that freedom in the military. So no matter where you are in the globe, you can take correspondence tests to the U.S. Air Force, Community College of the Air Force. And so I learned that, and I was like, well, I'm just gonna knock these out while I'm sitting at the plane guarding stuff, right? And so I take 2 with me, finish 2 classes in a 12-hour shift sometimes, depending on how much I could read. And so I would just knock it out, and that's what I did.
Well, I am absolutely proud of you just hearing that. That's immense. That's a lot of schoolwork in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, I love reading though. Reading is my thing, so I didn't mind reading.
That is helpful, because I know that was a lot of reading, like monumental. So yes. What is something that you learned in the service as, part of your job, or just the culture that you picked up there, that still affects the way you live now? What did you bring with you?
Time management. I really learned not to just be punctual. That's like a habit of the military, but I really learned that I needed to look at my day. And so when I got out, I really would use the same skills I had in the military. So you kind of had a set time you would wake up, a set time you would try to eat, kind of regimented day. So I kept that going, and I've pretty much kept that going all my life. And so time management is something I'm decent at, still not the best, but for sure my military time helped me get better at it.
That makes so much sense after being raised by an Air Force
right.
who had my daily regimen listed on my door every morning so that I knew what my rec time was,
right?
what chow time was, and what was listed for breakfast that morning. So I totally know exactly what you're saying. And to be quite honest, I still live that much into the regiment that was started for me as a kid. I passed it on to mine.
That's cool. That's so
without
cool.
even having gone in the service. I know just what you mean. So, but, with that, I haven't been in the service, but from what I've gotten from my dad, a lot of those life skills are already embedded in me from him. And so I think the way I think about the armed forces may be different than most. So what do you think is the perception in general of the armed forces in the Black community?
Oh, so you know what? I think when I went in, I joined in 1998 to give some reference to time there. So that's been a good 20 plus years ago. Ooh, maybe longer than that. Either way, back then, no one had talked about it. It was very negative, meaning that they were afraid that you were going to go to war and be hurt, right? And so I kind of thought about that, and I think that's still prominent right now with all the wars and things people see on TV. So I think that's a fear, right? Sending your children off to war. Also that the military can be very rigid, right? That you may experience some meanness. That's partially true. Your first couple of months, you do experience a little bit of that, but as the service goes on, it gets a little bit better. So I think nowadays, more people I know of color that went to the military, friends, etc., they have really come back and told me how it's changed. So it's changed a lot now. So I think the perception now is it kind of gives you an advancement. It gives you kind of step up if you want to kind of leave for a couple years, figure yourself out, get some free education when you come back. So I think the perception has kind of changed a little bit.
True, that's probably true. And if you could speak to new recruits now, and just give them some advice, especially considering the social unrest and, the preparations for a whole new administration, what would you tell them?
Oh, really try to find a veteran, someone like me, I'm considered a veteran, that can talk you a little bit through what they experienced, that may have a friend that's still in active duty. I have several now that are like chief master sergeants, captains, etc. Because I left, right? I got out. But I think talk to somebody first, not to say you can't trust a recruiter, but take what they tell you with a grain of salt. Like go with somebody else and get their second, third opinion before you decide what branch to go into, how long you stay, and kind of what your full career plan is. Do you want to stay in 20? Do you want to stay in just 4? Like have that already kind of talked through before you go to enlist, because then you'll be more confident in your job and then have a better career plan.
I think that sounds great, even for, choosing colleges and figuring out where you want to go in life. That is such a big life commitment. I think having another veteran there and someone active duty, I think that would be amazing for a student and someone getting ready to make a big move. I agree 100%. And, now we want to know, life after armed forces. So what are you doing now professionally since being out of the Air Force?
Yeah, so when I left the Air Force, I had been a police officer. I don't know if I said that earlier, but I was a military police officer. And so when I got out, at first I was going to do that, and then I didn't. It didn't sit well with me for different reasons. And so I ended up going back to college and got into social work. And so I did social work for a while, about 3-4 years, got a master's degree, started doing therapy. And so I became a therapist, did that for another 10 years-ish. And then 5 years ago, I transitioned to education. So now I'm a professor. So now I teach social work and human services. So I teach kind of counseling.
Wow.
Yeah.
You have done so much.
I know. It sounds like a lot. I'm telling you, that hustle, that 4 years mattered. That hustle in the military mattered.
And mental health is so important in the Black community.
Yes, it is.
I commend you for bringing that back into our community and adding that to our community. Thank you. Oh my goodness. And you're teaching this. So you're teaching more people how to get into this field. Correct. Do you find that you have more minority students than you may have a few years ago?
You know what? I to be honest, what I saw my first couple years teaching, I saw a lot of diversity in my classrooms, associate levels, right? Associate level students. But when you get to graduate school, those numbers change, right? So I think we haven't developed a clear path for young people, especially people of color, to understand the difference between that 2-year, 4-year, and that 6-year advanced degree. And I think I see a lot of diversity at this point, but not a continuation or a better mentoring program to get them into advanced degrees. And so we lack that. So we start off strong in the associate as far as community college, and then we kind of trickle down in numbers as we get higher and higher in the degrees.
All right, students, we got to get up there. We got to get past.
Got to get that bachelor's. Today, the bachelor's is like a high school education. You have to have a bachelor's degree to do some professional careers nowadays. So consider that bachelor's degree if you can.
Got to get it up. Got to get it up. So tell me, with your profession, now that you're teaching, what is the most fulfilling part about that?
Oh yeah, I get to share my story. So students, again, they ask me the same questions, and so they wonder, how did I do all those things and now teach? And I appear to be in my 30s, but I'm in my 40s. And I explain that, and then I also talk about the reality of the profession. And so I give them like the duality of knowledge, but also the real, right? I don't keep the real from them. And so I'm trying to get them as close as I can to be open to that next degree after they leave the community college. But it is my heart. The students I see, some have never experienced someone in their family that has went to the military or has a master's degree or has this or that, right? And I think it's important for them to see me as a mentor too. And so, yes, I teach, but I also consider myself a mentor for students that look like me and those that look similar to the community I've served, where they can come and say, wait a minute, excuse me, she did that, now I can do that. And she's young still, so I can get this done quick. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to share just off the dome with our viewers?
Yeah, just if you're thinking about the military, it's not a bad thing to do. So if someone tells you don't do it, get information. Information can't harm you. We are the era of information. You can talk to other people, you can look things up, get information before you decide, because for sure the military gave me a quality of life I wouldn't have had if I didn't go.
Thank you so much. This has been so much information, and I just commend you. I'm so proud to hear of all these amazing accomplishments, and just knowing you as a person, I'm just like,
oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Congratulations. That is amazing. And I really appreciate you being here, and I anticipate seeing more of you in the future here at Steam Engine Academy.
For sure. Anything is available to you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Today, to finish things off, we're going to read a story about a young girl who learns to love the skin she's in. Today, we read Soulway by Lupita Nuongo, and the illustrations are by Vashti Harris. Hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you tomorrow. Soulway. Soulway was born the color of midnight. She looked nothing like her family, not even a little, not even at all. Mama was the color of dawn, Baba the color of dusk, and Mish, her sister, the color of high noon. Hardly anyone at school looked like Soulway either. People gave her sister Mish pet names like Sunshine and Ray and Beauty. People gave Soulway names like Blackie and Darky and Night. Soulway felt hurt every time, so she hid away while her sister made lots of friends. Soulway dreamed of being the same color as her sister. She wanted real friends too. So she got the biggest eraser she could find and tried to rub off a layer or two of her darkness. That hurt. She crept into Mama's room and helped herself to her makeup. Oh no, she would hear about this from Mama. Soulway decided to work from the inside out and ate only the lightest, brightest foods. With a stomach ache, she went to bed early and turned to God for a miracle. Dear Lord, why do I look like midnight when my mother looks like dawn? Please make me as fair as the parents I'm from. I want to be beautiful, not just pretend. I want to have daylight. I want to have friends. If you hear me, my Lord, and would like to comply, may I wake up as bright as the sun in the sky. Amen. When Mama came in to wake her for school the next morning, Soulway rose to find not a trace of daylight in her midnight skin. Soulway told Mama everything. Mama asked, "What is your name?" "Soulway," she muttered. "And what does it mean?" "Star," Soulway whispered. Brightness is not your skin, my love. Brightness is just who you are. As for beauty, Mama said, rubbing Soulway's stomach the way she always did to comfort her, you are beautiful. Soulway sighed. Well, you are beautiful to me, but you can't rely on what you look like to make you feel beautiful, my love. Real beauty comes from your mind and your heart. It begins with how you see yourself, not how others see you. Now up you get, and out you go. How could she, as dark as she was, have brightness in her? How could she have beauty when no one but her mother seemed to see it? How could she be a star? That night, a shooting star appeared at Soulway's window. "The night sent me," the star said. "Come with me." Soulway hopped onto the star, and off they went. Long ago, at the beginning of time, said the star, there was night and day, and they were sisters. They loved each other very much, but people didn't treat the sisters the same. People gave Day pet names like lovely and nice and pretty. People gave Night names like scary and bad and ugly. She felt hurt every time. Well, Night got fed up and walked right off the earth. Day stayed behind and enjoyed making everybody happy in the sun. But then Day grew too long. Day began to really miss her sister. So did everybody else. There had to be a way to get her back. Day set off to find Night. And she did. "I miss you," said Day. "I miss you too," said Night. "But you don't know what it's like to be treated badly for being dark." "You're right, I don't," Day replied. "But what I do know is that we need you just the way you are. Come and see." Night returned and the people rejoiced. "We need the darkness to get the deepest rest. We need you so that we can grow and dream and keep our secrets to ourselves." The stars chimed in. Brightness isn't just for daylight. Light comes in all colors, and some light can only be seen in the dark. While day had a golden glow, with night, everything had a silver sheen, elegant and fine. Day told her sister, "When you are darkest is when you are most beautiful. It's when you are most you." Could it be that Night did not need to change? Not even a little? Not even at all? Now that day and night were back together, a little bit of night returned to day in the form of shadows, and a little bit of day returned to night in the form of moonlight. They were inseparable from that moment on and promised to celebrate the brightness in each other, whether people chose to see it or not. You see, the star explained, we need them both on their sunniest day and their darkest night, and every shade in between. Together they make the world we know, light and dark, strong and beautiful. Soulway rose the next morning, beaming. There would be no more hiding. She belonged out in the world, dark and beautiful, bright and strong. And if she ever needed a reminder of her brightness, she could look up at the sky on the darkest night to see for herself. Soulway felt beautiful, inside and out. The end.
One more again. Mas não. Mas não. Mas não. Na viagem. Espesso. Na viagem. Espesso. Mas não vou sem te chamar na viagem. Espesso na viagem. Espesso na viagem. Espesso